it's Mo. I had every intention of filming this video. I wanted to film this video. I planned to film this video. I talked about filming this video all through July. And then somehow I got like a mental block and it was hard for me to film this video. But finally, here's where I'm going to talk all about my recently acquired books spreadsheet, my system, and how my recently acquired books project is going for 2022. I had originally planned to film this kind of early in July so that I had 6 months of data at my disposal, but then most of July went by and I was like, well, I should just have 7 months of data at my disposal and I can film about that. So here we are looking at the first 7 months of recently acquired books. A note on recently acquired books. You know I don't like to use the H word, but these are often also called book hauls. These are the books that I bring into my house each month. I personally don't like book hauls. I don't watch book hauls that often. They're not my favorite thing. I think they often encourage booktubers to spend money that they don't have and don't need to spend. They perpetuate the idea of consumerism and that everything needs to be bought and that everything needs to be owned and consumed. That being said, you can see behind me, I love stuff. I love to have stuff. I love to rescue stuff, especially. We collect a lot of toys, we have plants, we love books, we love comics, but I think there are other ways to get these things than to just buy them and buy them mindlessly, thoughtlessly, and without purpose. Recently acquired books are what I prefer to call my book hauls, and in my first 2 years of BookTube, 2020 and 2021, I avoided doing them for the most part, but in 2022, I embraced the idea that I do bring in quite a few books into my home. I do acquire many books. And do I read the books I acquire? Do I need to be acquiring so many books? Yes, my books are not bought new, they are bought secondhand, or more often they are found for free or for extremely cheap at library sales, which support local libraries, at book sales, which support local organizations, at free little libraries, which support free trade through the little library system. And I feel good about bringing these books in and the way that I bring these books in. But do I really need to be acquiring so many books? And how many books am I even acquiring? Before 2022, I didn't even pay attention to how many books I brought in each month. I assumed, or at least I thought, it was very little. Doing recently acquired book videos every month in 2022 has taught me something very different. So let's look at my spreadsheet, and I will insert a rundown of how I have organized and categorized my recently acquired books here. Just looking at this spreadsheet actually made me change and add some things, which you'll get to see at the end of the year. Let's go to the spreadsheet. My spreadsheet is just a simple Google Sheets spreadsheet, and I made it myself. It's not very complex. It's pretty rudimentary, but it has all the things I need. So date acquired, title, author, location, cost, month read, total spent, and that's the total for the year and then also for each month. When I hauled them, so that is when I made a video on them, and it corresponds to the color on the spreadsheet. When I make a haul, I do that. How many books I've read during each month, and then how many books I've read off of this spreadsheet each month, including the unhauled or DNF'd. So you can see here as I scroll down that I have color-coded the months that I've read these books and marked them as read or unhauled or DNF'd in some cases. And you can see I have also marked when I have made a video about them. So here we are at the end of July, sitting at 211 books. That is a lot of books. But you can see that my spreadsheet is extremely simple. I do write down the cost of all the books that I've acquired. Most of them are zeros. That does correspond to the months that I have acquired them, and then it does get added up in that other column. Some of these books are a little bit more expensive. You can see that those are books that I probably bought either online or at a used bookstore. Mostly they are in the under $1 or $1 and under range. For certain book purchases like big book sales, I don't individually price each book normally. Sometimes I do, depends on how many books I'm acquiring, but a lot of times I'll just take the entire book haul from that book sale and mark down as much as I paid for it. So you can see in that one I paid $39 for about 29 books. And then there's a few things where I unhauled things or where I had DNFs, and that is marked on the side. And then here's my total number spent. So as of the end of July, I spent $221.87 on books. That's not that bad. Here I'm looking at just how many books per month I read, and then also how many I read from this sheet. So that's marked, and then they're color-coded per month. I went with random colors at first, and then I decided that like I'm just gonna run out of colors, so I better start doing a rainbow so it makes more sense. And here I'm writing in the total amount read because I didn't have a column for that. I can add that up for the total amount read from this spreadsheet. Again, these are super simple formulas and functions that are already in Google Sheets, so this is a super easy one to make. When I was looking over the sheet, I realized that I hadn't added in July's books. I hadn't added how many books I read off this spreadsheet into the July section, or how many books I read total for the month of July. That makes the total number of books that I've read off this spreadsheet 21 for the month, for the first 7 months of the year, and that's about 9.5%, but we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Now that we've looked at the spreadsheet and you see how I am keeping and organizing my books, let's talk over a few of the stats and symbols and things that I have noticed while looking at that spreadsheet and while prepping for this video. My recently acquired book spreadsheet goes from January 2020 to the end of July 2020, and I have 211 books on that spreadsheet currently. Out of those 211 books, I have only read 21 books. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad number because I've already had quite a few books on my physical TBR. I also read a lot of audiobooks that I don't own. So 21 books is not the worst in reality. In theory, and looking at it, it being only about 9.52%, it doesn't seem like very good numbers, but I actually think that that's fine. I also have found that keeping my RABSS spreadsheet has been awesome for my mood reading and picking books that I want to read. Instead of things getting lost on my TBR shelf or only the books that stand out to me getting read, I will often peruse that spreadsheet. I look at it almost every day just because I enjoy spreadsheets and I think it's super fun, and I check in on where I am and what I'm doing, and I get to see different books that I might want to read that maybe would have slipped my mind or maybe fit in with a theme that I'm reading for that month, but I forgot I had on my shelves or I forgot went with that theme. So I really utilize my spreadsheet as a reading tool as well as a tool for keeping track of my recently acquired books. Just for perspective, I acquired 211 books so far this year. I've read 21 off of that sheet, but at the time of filming, I've read 77 books. Those 21 books out of 211 don't seem like very much, but 21 books out of 77 is kind of a lot. That's almost a third of what I've read so far this year. So, like I said, this tool is helping me with my reading as well as keeping track of my recently acquired books. Looking at this spreadsheet and filming this screen capture of my spreadsheet, I wanted to know which genre of books I had mostly been picking up. So I did go through later and list all the genres. You'll get to see that at the end of the year. And I've mostly been picking up literary fiction, nonfiction, then mystery, then science fiction and horror, and then kind of fantasy, children's, poetry, and an amalgamation of all the other genres. Now, this is not necessarily how I read. I do read a lot of nonfiction, usually at least one a month, but literary fiction is not, I would say, my most read genre. I think mystery is my most read genre. Now, this could mean that I've acquired lots and lots of literary fiction, but I think that literary fiction probably, because this category encompasses a lot of things, it encompasses romance and modern classics, it encompasses classics. So if we broke this down further, mystery might be higher on this list. And now let's just quickly look at how many books I acquired, how many books I read that month, and how many books I read from my acquired books that month. So in January of 2022, I acquired 14 books and I read 12 books that month. So I like that balance right there. That to me is like a good, if you're reading 12 off of your TBR, but you're bringing in 14, you're only balancing 2 extra books to your TBR. So you're pretty balanced. And then I didn't read any off of the recently acquired books in January, partly because I had just acquired those books. Currently, I've been reading more books more recently. It's August and I hauled a few books already and I've already read one of those books. But in January, I was still kind of like putting those books aside and not really reading from the same month that I acquired. In February, I acquired 24 books and I read 12 books that month. So now we're doubling. Now you have a lot of books that you're acquiring and your TBR is staying exactly the same because you are reading half of what you brought in. In February, I read 3 books off of my recently acquired books list. In March, I also brought in 24 books, but I only read 10 books. So now we're even less balanced. My TBR is going up, 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 and it's not getting diminished by the books that I'm reading. April was where it all went wrong. I went to book sales in April. I went to a million little libraries in April. I also acquired a huge box of books from my father. Not even all of them made it to my list because some of them went immediately to my basement box books. And I also got some from my mom as well. So people were gifting me books. These are not gifts, like presents. These are, if you don't save these books, they're going to end up in a worser fate. So a lot of times I will accumulate books because of that, because I want to save them. I don't want them to go missing or lost or end up in a bad state, even though sometimes these books are just going to end up like at a Goodwill or something. So in April, I acquired 60 books. And actually, again, I acquired over 60 books, but we're going to call it 60. And I only read 12 books. So now my TBR has jumped up by 48 books. That is a ridiculous amount. And it definitely set me back for the remaining 3 months that we are going to talk about. So going back to March for a second, I only read 1 book off of my recently acquired book spreadsheet. In April, I read 4 books off of my recently acquired book spreadsheet. In May, I acquired 33 books and I read 12 books that month. I acquired 21 books in addition to the 12 that I read, so my TBR went up. I read 5 books off of my RABSS spreadsheet in May. In June, I acquired 17 books. Now we're getting a little bit back to where we ought to be. In June, I read only 9 books though, so still quite a few books adding to my TBR and not coming off of it, not balancing it. And I only read 1 book off of my RABSS spreadsheet. In July, just like in May, there were a lot of book sales and I went to rummage sales and book sales, and I also acquired 33 books. I read 10 books in July, so again, not a good balance from books. And I read 7 books off my RABSS spreadsheet in this month. So I did read the most books off the spreadsheet in the last month. I think that does show that the more books I have from this spreadsheet, the bigger collection of books I own, the more I am reading books that I've acquired. I think it also shows you that I've acquired a lot of books that I like, because if I read 10 books, only 3 of those were not books that I acquired in 2022, which means that those 3 books were either backlist books that I already owned, or more likely, and in this particular case, they were audiobooks that I got from free audio sites. So that's kind of how my spreadsheet works and how I utilize it. I think that it's been an extremely interesting tool, and it has definitely helped me realize how much I'm acquiring. And sometimes it gives me a little bit of unrest to know that I'm acquiring way more books than I can read, let alone am reading. If 12, which seems to be kind of my highest number of books per month, is all I can read in a month, even if I read 12 books a month every month in the year, I can only read 144 books. And if I've already acquired many more than that, it's going to take me years and years and years to read them all. Again, not to mention my physical TBR, which was already over 100 books. Not to mention my basement box books, which are numerous. I do think that this is helping me visualize, helping me see that maybe I don't need to be acquiring as many books. Something that I'd like to do for the end of the year, now that I have a genre section in my RABSS spreadsheet, is tally up which genre of books I've read the most of from that RABSS spreadsheet, and see if maybe I need to cut down on picking up like literary fiction and bulk up on some other genre if I'm going to be acquiring them. Or maybe I could just not acquire the books that I'm not really reading many of. Something else that I would like to do at the end of the year is revisit this spreadsheet, see exactly how many books I acquired in all of 2022, and see what else this spreadsheet indicates to me about my acquiring and about my reading. I've already kind of decided that one of my goals for 2023 is to acquire less books, to be at peace and okay with letting more books pass me by, because a lot of times I will find books that I pick up, but then I see them again later, so I don't actually need to be picking up all these books. I'll also be doing a unhaul at the end of the year of books that I'm not going to read that I picked up during this year of the RABSS spreadsheet. There's already a little pile, a few books that I've gotten rid of and that I'm going to get rid of because they were too tempting to bring in, but I don't necessarily need them. So I think that was an interesting look at my spreadsheet. I hope that you enjoyed seeing how I'm categorizing and analyzing the books that I bring in. I think this has been a really interesting and fun experiment slash challenge slash project, and I am super excited for hauling less, for acquiring less books in the new year, and for other goals that this spreadsheet is going to generate for 2023. So we will definitely check in January of 2023, see what happened with my spreadsheet, see how the rest of the year went, and see what we're gonna do next year. Let me know if you found this video interesting. Let me know if you think of anything that I could add to the spreadsheet that you think would be useful for your own reading, or that you think might be helpful to my reading slash book acquiring. And thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.